Hi, I'm Bibi, the host. Recently, China's economic trend differs from ours. We've designated this a special economic observation area with partial activity restrictions, says Seon Seo-su. But when we look behind China's actions, it seems to be interpreted as an attempt to accelerate its maritime expansion. Today, I'll explain this content in detail. China has taken an even more aggressive stance this time. On May 22, 2025, China unilaterally designated part of our country's exclusive economic zone as a prohibited navigation area for military exercises. This is not mere provocation, but a violation of national sovereignty that restricts our freedom of navigation. China designated 3 areas as prohibited navigation zones, including one near China that was still announced as a military exercise zone. However, the other 2 areas were clearly within South Korea's exclusive economic zone or very close to it. China failed to disclose its reasons for designating 2 areas as prohibited navigation zones, raising suspicions about its motives. Restricting activities in South Korea's exclusive economic zone without explanation could be interpreted as violating international law. By doing this, they're declaring to the international community that this area is theirs and that they can control it without justification. China employed a similar strategy in the South China Sea by constructing artificial islands and asserting exclusive economic rights over the adjacent waters. And whether this is a remote island or an uninhabited island, we don't really know yet. China has designated some regions as prohibited zones this time, which they have continuously occupied and developed with illegal structures since 2018. China claimed these structures were just simple shelters, but in reality, they are all military facilities. China claimed that structures number 1 installed in 2018 and number 2 installed in April 2024 were mere fish farms. But upon closer inspection, these unusual fish farms are interconnected and situated in locations where military supplies are often delivered. However, summer water temperatures can exceed 25 degrees C at the surface, so it's hard to believe that salmon farming could be done in such a place. China not only built the Xianlan 1 and 2, but also installed a large-scale structure. The structure was confirmed to have a helipad, dormitory, water supply station, and surveillance tower. This was a multi-purpose structure that could function as a fishing facility, maritime surveillance post, and naval forward base. It's difficult to believe civilian companies would install communication towers and similar equipment on the island. Looking at what's been installed, their military purpose is undeniable. If it were a civilian company, it would obviously be a loss, but if the government did it, it's clear what the intention was. There is no doubt that this was a strategic move by the government authorities. China plans to expand facilities like Xianlan 1 and 2 to a total of 12 units. In the next decade, it's conceivable that the West Sea could be linked directly to China's maritime base via these belts. So in that situation, China has designated a restricted area in the waters adjacent to Korea. There are a lot of concerns growing about this. The designated navigation restriction zone indicates China's pursuit of military operations to secure maritime dominance. Initially, they cited searching for wreckage as a pretext to temporarily occupy and maintain a presence in the area. The artificial island and the marina create a physical sense of presence. In the next phase, access is restricted using pretexts like military drills, converting it into a forbidden zone. This prevents civilians from freely approaching, effectively allowing them to occupy the area. If China builds their own island, they can do whatever they want there. It's not an unreasonable statement. China has already built similar artificial islands in the South China Sea, as evident from satellite images clearly showing it's China's work. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs asserts their actions in the PMG area, a region used only for public fishing, are legal and comply with international law. Installing military facilities or structures is a clear violation of the agreement, but that's exactly what they're doing without hesitation. China's actions suggest they are not merely interpreting the situation to their advantage, but deliberately misrepresenting the facts. Experts think China's growing influence in the West Sea is a strategy to claim the waters as their own. If the West Sea becomes China's territory, it could significantly disadvantage our rights and interests. Imagine Chinese warships right in front of us. Wouldn't that be excessive? So if China takes over the West Sea, are we just supposed to accept it and move on? I don't think that's the right way to think about it. Letting things go too far may lead us to repeat past mistakes and gradually lose our territory, as history teaches us. China typically behaves this way. Recently, it has been significantly bolstering its military capabilities against Japan. The Shandong Peninsula is geographically one of the closest regions to the Korean Peninsula. 4 Air Force squadrons, along with hundreds of fighter jets and bombers, are officially confirmed to be stationed there. Prior to this, China had constructed 2 more large airfields near Qingdao, an already formidable frontline base. They are increasing their air power. In addition, at the Yuchi Air Base, the expansion work is being carried out to the extent that it could accommodate 2 air regiments. There are military bases that the Chinese military is heavily focusing their military power on, raising questions about their intentions. This is seen as a result of China's government being aware of a potential military conflict with the United States in an emergency situation. We need to block the West Sea and neutralize the Yellow Sea. This is because it can prevent a situation where Beijing is attacked in advance. The United States and Japan have recently been bolstering their military might as if readying for a potential crisis. Japan is expanding its maritime self-defense fleet and quickly boosting its missile strike capabilities. From China's perspective, when the United States and allies attack China, they will also attack Beijing. However, when Beijing is attacked, they will retaliate by targeting the West through Beijing. At this time, if you want to deter missiles or drones, the most effective way is to strengthen the naval power of the West Sea. Also, if you install military facilities in the West Sea, these facilities will become obstacles in the sea, making it difficult for the United States and other allied countries' fleets to approach. If you build the West Sea as your own backyard, you can install as many maritime structures as you want. China is opening up and installing maritime structures. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea allows declaring a 500-meter safety zone around structures and restricting passage within 3 nautical miles. If this occurs, China could control and limit navigation in the relevant sea area, just like in the South China Sea. They can then construct facilities in the West Sea, set up maritime structures, and establish their own maritime zones. That's a potential scenario. Currently, China wants to make the Korean Exclusive Economic Zone Airspace Control Zone the starting point of this strategy. The example navigation restriction zone was set and will end on the 28th. If we let this period pass and let it become normalized, then it will completely become China's backyard. We need to respond properly from here. If that happens, there could even be armed conflict. Since signing the Korea-China Fisheries Agreement, you might wonder if China can unilaterally establish their own exclusive economic zone. It's a valid question. Under the Korea-China Fisheries Agreement, the agreement becomes invalid 1 year after either side notifies the other of its intention to terminate it. So if China suddenly notifies us of the termination and then declares its own exclusive economic zone, it means the West Sea could end up becoming China's waters. Allowing a military clash with China would be disastrous. The disparity between our West Sea defense fleets and China's North Sea fleet is immense. The North Sea fleet boasts 9 aircraft carriers and as many as 30 sizable destroyers, a force that would challenge even the United States. South Korea is very anxious about China's immense military might. South Korea's foreign ministry has raised concerns with China over its air defense identification zone restrictions, stating they could limit navigation freedom. These concerns were communicated through diplomatic channels. The Ministry of National Defense and related agencies are closely consulting on whether China's actions violate international maritime law and how to respond. They pledged to respond firmly to protect our legitimate rights from future infringement. If Korea's response is unclear, it will be viewed as weak. This will embolden China to continue asserting its claims as it desires. This issue extends beyond the military, potentially impacting resources, fisheries, maritime affairs, and navigation. China has been expanding its presence in the South China Sea for years using similar tactics, and the Southeast Asian countries have been unable to respond effectively, resulting in the loss of their own seas. The same situation is now occurring in our country, so the government and authorities must be aware of China's tactics and prepare accordingly. We may need to bolster cooperation with maritime security partners like the United States, Japan, and Australia. We must also deploy large-scale rescue vessels like this and expand operations. We must extend our maritime territory to create a buffer against China's navy. It's challenging for us to handle China's growing influence alone. Cooperation with the international community, especially the United States, Japan, Australia, and the European Union, is vital for maritime security. We can take a proactive stance by filing a lawsuit against China's maritime law violation with the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, or strengthening joint responses with Southeast Asian countries. This issue extends beyond Korea. It's an international challenge to limit China's maritime expansion, requiring global solidarity. China consistently delays responses, prolongs matters, and feigns ignorance. Seohai is quiet for now, but it's not safe. If Korea doesn't respond promptly, Seohai may no longer be ours as we know it in a decade. I'm really worried about that part. This case is not merely a maritime dispute, but a grave issue that could jeopardize Korea's security, economy, and diplomatic relations. How do you all feel about China's recent maritime expansion and externalization strategy? Please let us know in the comments. We'll keep you updated with more videos. This is Bibi.